What's up, Ego Hackers? Welcome to the C.S. Joseph Podcast. I'm your host, C.S. Joseph. Today's question is, what makes ENTPs moral chameleons? What a great question. I haven't had an ENTP question in a while, so buckle up, let's get just down to it. ENTPs, yeah, we are moral chameleons, aren't we? It's because we don't have any morals of our own. We don't have any principles of our own. We are entirely amoral people, and we are often judged by other people for being so amoral. But I tell you the truth, it's not our fault. We have this thing called FI trickster. And as much as an ENJ type, like an ENTJ or an ENFJ, is judged for being so forgetful, they can't help it. They can't help it. Therefore, I can't help but be weird. I can't help but be unprincipled. I can't help but lack morality, at least morality of my own. I can't help these things. Which is sad and difficult and painful. I've been judged so harshly, especially by FJs in my life, FJ types. That's why I really struggle having close relationships with FJs. No matter how close I get to an FJ, they always seem to be so judgmental towards me. They always seem to expect more. They really enjoyed it. They really enjoy taking from me, but they really struggle giving back. And sometimes they often feel like they deserve to take from me because, I'm just this bad person. I'm an amoral person, right? Because I lack morality in this capacity, it ends up causing a lot of problems to that end. It's not who I am. It's not my identity. People with introverted feeling trickster, ESTPs included, we struggle with identity, but especially ESTPs because they're soul temple. They feel like they're entirely outside of their body, basically. And that too ends up becoming a problem, a serious problem. And then it ends up being the struggle that they have. But at least the ENTP out of the 16 types, at least out of the FI tricksters, has extroverted intuition hero, which means we are highly adaptable. We can adapt to almost any situation, given enough time. We can get through almost any situation, given enough time. Because we are malleable. We are like water. Water can flow in around things, under things, over things. It can also go directly through things. If given enough time, it'll erode its way through. Or if given enough time, or if given enough pressure, it becomes a water laser and can cut through any obstacle, such as the way of extroverted intuition hero. Because we're so malleable, being like water, we are so easily flexible, so easily bendable, so easily adaptable within life. This adaptability basically allows us to become these moral chameleons. I talk about one of the practical applications of being a moral chameleon, and I believe it's season 7, episode 8, the virtue and vice of ENTPs. It might also be episode 7, but I really think it's episode 8 because I think I had an introduction episode in that season. Season 7, which is some of my oldest content, but definitely still relevant. Talks about how sincerity is our virtue and insincerity is our vice. What makes us great liars? Well, it's because we're moral chameleons, because we are constantly wearing masks all the time. And those masks, sometimes we become the mask. Unlike an INTJ who's trying to have one good mask that works in all situations, the ENTP has many masks and wears so many masks that works in each individual situation. Mask by mask by mask. It's who we are. And quite frankly, we start out in life where we don't have principles. We just don't. We are forced by our parents to adopt their principles. Same thing goes for ESTPs. ETPs all have this problem. Growing up, we're just children. We're just weak. We don't have our own identity. We don't even have our own life, right? That's not who we are. Well, we lack that identity, and then we have an identity that's basically given to us, where we are expected to be this person. Like, for example, if your family as an ETP has its own organized religion, we would naturally adopt that organized religion because of FI Trickster. Yeah, we're both pragmatic types, but still, at the end of the day, that organized religion ends up becoming the template for what we actually adopt or have. And that, too, can be a problem. A huge problem. But yeah, it just comes down to lack of principles. We don't have any principles of our own. We just adopt principles of other people. This can actually open us up to abuse and cause a lot of problems over time. Imagine being raised as a Christian. Your father is a pastor. You're that pastor's kid. So much expected of you. I even became a biblical scholar. He wanted me to be a pastor. Follow in his footsteps. The reality of the situation is, I became a biblical scholar, and then as a result, my only value is just to spite him as I call him out for every contradiction that he has within his own belief system. Because he would rather rely on church authority instead of actually verifying that church authority. Why should we care about the Council of Carthage? Why should we care about the Council of Trent? Why should we care about the Council of Nicaea? A bunch of gray-haired men voting on what they believe is God's word. Sounds like bullshit to me. So why do we care? But when you're a little child and you have introverted feeling trickster, and you're raised in this environment, you end up having these belief systems foisted upon you because we're malleable enough to adopt the principles of others. And because we lack those principles on our own, we look like moral chameleons. Because our principles change based on who is present. Yeah. Extroverted feeling child. It so desperately just wants to give people balloons and candy. And if that means the balloons and candy means giving people what they like, giving people the belief system that they like, what does that say about us? We end up lacking substance. We end up lacking identity. This is why if you are an ETP, I highly recommend you actually read books. You read philosophy books as soon as possible. Philosophy is everything to an FI trickster because it will help us adopt many sets of principles that will allow us to have FI mastery in our lives. Then we do not have to be a moral chameleon because we slowly, over time, through decades of hard work and research through philosophy, to identify and create our own internal philosophy over time. Like I have. I remember one time I was on the phone with my father. This is about 2 or 3 years ago. About 3 years ago. And he asked me directly, 4 years ago actually, he asked me directly, so what's your life purpose? He straight up asked me that. Of course, an FE hero would ask what my life purpose is, naturally. I told him, this comes from the Bible, Dad. I mean, obviously, he'd like to hear that, right? Malachi chapter 4, verses 5 and 6. In the last days, I will send my prophet Elijah to you before the great day of the Lord, also known as the end of the world. He will turn the hearts of fathers to their sons, and the hearts of sons to their fathers, or else I will strike the earth with the decree of utter destruction. Elijah to bring back masculinity, right? That's the point. To bring back masculinity. That's what I intend to do. Now, I may not be the prophet Elijah, but his mission is mine, and I will see it through to my last breath. It's just central to who I am, and I've adopted that principle. More principles that I've adopted. Dokdo, the way of the Ronin, also known as the way of walking alone. by Miyamoto Musashi. I believe Miyamoto Musashi was probably actually an INTJ. I think he was an INTJ. Especially after reading the Book of Five Rings, his constant obsession with strategy, etc. Which isn't wrong. You should always be strategic in everything in your life. But the 21 principles of Dokudo have been a guiding factor in the decision-making within my own life when I find myself alone, which is something that is extremely common among ETPs. ETPs with TI parent, we're just so naturally alienating to everybody else that we can't help but be alone. ESTPs being paranoid of other people's intentions and assuming other people's intentions. ENTPs like myself being paranoid of other people's actions and assuming and presuming other people's actions. It just leads to alienation when you combine TI parent with our demon functions, also known as the demonic parent. That's what the demonic parent is all about. I think I'll be releasing a series on the demonic parent in the near future. I think the demonic parent is something that heavily needs to be discussed, and I believe it will be the series that will be coming out right after the Octagram series is done within the premium lectures. The demonic parent. We haven't done a series on demon functions in a while, so we're going to be discussing the demonic parent. Going a little bit into what I used to talk about in Cutting Edge, known as cognitive combining. Although, let's be honest, in that episode in Cutting Edge of cognitive combining, I actually did a really poor job of presenting it, so hopefully I'll do much better within these premium lectures. If you want to get in on premium lectures, csjoseph.life/members, become a journeyman member today. Get access to all of our premium lectures, our Cutting Edge episodes, Typing with Famous People live stream, all of that. There's so much content, it would take you 9 weeks at least to binge it all. Good luck. But that's why ENTPs are moral chameleons. Our principles change based on who's present until we've learned FI mastery through our FI trickster, until such time we have our own principles regardless of who is present. And that's where I'm at right now in my life. I'm finally there. I have my own principles regardless of who's present. It's taken me that long. 36 years old. That INTJ server, she will not stop looking at me. Oh my God. So funny. Of course, you know, I'm just some rando smoking a cigar, filming himself on the street while everyone assumes that I'm filming them because all of it's so funny. She saw me the other day with my personal assistant and thought like her and I were in like a relationship or something, but that was not actually the case. That's so funny to me how people like do that. My God. Just goes to show like how easy people judge by appearances. And that's where the ENTP comes in, being this moral chameleon, because we know people judge by appearance. So we take on the principles of those around us to shield ourselves from conflict. That's why we do it. We're trying to protect ourselves. We're trying to play it safe. The thing is that as I have developed my own principles over time and I've reached some level of FI mastery within my life, I've just become edgier, right? Potentially even more alienating. The thing is that if I continue to have the guts to share my principles with others, especially in public places like this, people end up respecting me more. People end up actually sticking around because they know that I'm not being fake. They know that there's actually some substance to me, whereas before there was not substance to me. So if you're an EN or if you're an ETP, focus on having substance. It's really important. I'm talking directly to you, Patrick, when I say this. You know who you are. You better discover your principles super quick. I get you're super young, but you better get started on this now so you don't end up like I was in my 20s, an absolute total loser. I abhor who I used to be. I loathe who I used to be. That being said, I don't regret it either. One of the principles of Dokudo is don't regret your decisions. I don't. I don't regret my decisions. Not anymore, at least. It's been so freeing to understand that principle and why it has value. Because all of my decisions have become those scars, and those scars have been my guiding factor from which I was able to reach FI mastery in the first place, for which I am insanely grateful for. Very grateful for. Such that I could share my principles with you, the Ego Hacker community, because I love you all dearly. And I know the plans I have for you, to not harm you, to prosper you, to give you a future and a hope as a community, to give you a better life, as we all work hard to bring back masculinity, as we all work hard to bring back femininity, and stand in the face of this bullshit society that seeks to destroy our happiness, destroy our families, destroy our bloodlines, destroy our future. But we're not going to allow that to happen, are we? Instead, we'll have principles. And you know, I don't expect anyone here to even adopt my principles. I'm just going to be leading by example and showing you what my principles are and how I live my life, and you can decide to do so. Because unlike most ETPs out there, I don't have to be a moral chameleon anymore. You can just take me as I am. If you don't like it, cool. I'll move on to the next person. That's the beauty about our world. There's a lot of people. It's one of the best things about our world, actually. Life is beautiful, folks. The earth is rich. It can provide for everyone. I'm quoting Charlie Chaplin when I say that. From his speech, The Great Dictator, one of the things from which I derive my personal principles from. It's very important. It's very fascinating to that end, to be able to have that opportunity. So I recommend to you ETPs out there, especially ENTPs, don't be those moral chameleons anymore. And if you are a moral chameleon, it's because you haven't developed your principles, because you have not studied philosophy. So start studying philosophy now. Pick up any philosophy book and get started. For me, it was Japanese Stoicism. Really helped. Through Miyamoto Musashi. And also The Warrior Within by John Little, which is the philosophy of Bruce Lee and the Tao of Jeet Kune Do. Highly recommend it. Highly, highly recommend it. I can't stress enough how important that is. Anyway, folks, thanks for watching and listening. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.